Welcome back to Combat Mission Shock Force 2. If you are unfamiliar with this game and it's the first time you've kind of stumbled into it, it is a military grade maneuver simulation. When I say a military grade maneuver simulation, I mean the game is calculating a ton of stuff underneath the hood. The task organization of each combat unit reflects what it is in real life. The chance to hit is reflected accurately based off of algorithms and a ton of modifiers in the terrain and the type of vehicle and the range, the morale of the troops, the light and weather conditions, and anything else that you could possibly imagine. The movement speed is relatively slow. This can be played in real time or in turn-based, and it's not particularly pretty, but it is authentic and true to life. And it rewards the use of combined arms doctrine, planning, and all of those other things that we value on this channel. And if this is your first time on this channel, if you're a veteran, a service member, a doctrine enthusiast, a tactics enthusiast, then this is definitely the right place for you. We're really glad to have you, and I invite you guys to subscribe to the channel. This is a campaign, the second episode of this campaign. In fact, in the previous one, the U.S. military breached a mind wire obstacle separating the Iraq and the Syrian border, and having completed that successful combined arms breach in the first episode, we are now advancing along Route Lightning into Syria, and we've deployed a scout platoon out to our front. That's these four strikers right here, and this scout platoon has begun taking light enemy fire as it moves through this valley. This valley presents some issues. As you can see, we've got a high-speed avenue of approach right down the center. We've got high ground on either side of the map to the west and to the east. And the mission here, per the mission briefing, is to occupy these pieces of high ground. And then ultimately, by the end of this 1 hour long match, occupy also this low ground. And the first thing we do whenever we have an operation like this is we perform intelligence preparation of the battlefield. We try to take a stab at where we think the enemy may array himself on the battlefield. And we've been told that the composition of the enemy here is a light infantry unit, but nothing more than that. We don't really understand his disposition or his strength, but we do know it's a light infantry organization of some sort. And being that it is a Syrian light infantry unit, we know that they're going to have weapons up to heavy machine guns and shoulder-fired weapon systems, potentially anti-tank guided missiles, and some short-range air defense systems. But they're going to lack armored mobility, though they may have some sort of light mobility capability. We, on the other hand, have our Strikers, which is a light-wheeled, lightly armored mobility vehicle. Not really a fighting platform necessarily, but it is capable of stopping high-velocity rifle rounds up to about 7.62, and then after that you're going to get some Spalding and stuff that is going to penetrate the armor. Because we are a scout platoon kind of out in front of a larger force, basically moving and traveling Overwatch as part of like a movement to contact, and we've now gained contact with the enemy. We have to begin to identify the enemy's location, begin to attrit him, begin to develop the situation, maintain visual contact with him, and prepare this battlefield for our follow-on force, which is expected to arrive in the next 10 minutes. If we perform some terrain analysis here, that'll help us decide exactly how we think the enemy is going to array himself. And kind of the obvious first take is that this is a valley with high ground on either side. Because that high ground occupies both sides of the only high-speed avenue of approach on the level, I am, very comfortable calling each of these high points key terrain. Key terrain meaning that whatever side occupies it gains a decisive advantage over the other side. So high point B here, certainly key terrain. High point A over there, certainly key terrain. Also true of D. Less so with C because it doesn't have great observation and fields of fire down into the low ground, but I can absolutely still see the value of it. And this key terrain is made even more valuable knowing that we're fighting a light infantry unit that lacks a lot of heavy weapon systems and a lot of armored mobility. So their only advantage against a force like mine is to occupy terrain like this so that they can observe me along this avenue of approach and then attrit me from standoff with their long-range anti-tank guided missiles and their fires, if they have any fires to speak of. In order to capitalize on this opportunity, assuming the enemy is arrayed in this key terrain, I think he would likely put observation posts or battle positions up on this high ground. So I expect to see him dug into trenches and things like that up in this high ground, oriented down into this key avenue of approach, which would very likely be his engagement area. I also expect that there's potentially mines or other obstacles within this engagement area that would fix me in it so that the enemy from this battle position would be able to fight me. And I think that's probably also here. These two different battle positions from these two pieces of key terrain would be called a primary and then an alternate battle position. And as they begin to take fire and become attrited, I expect that the enemy could potentially forfeit this key terrain if I were to come up and fight them on it, and ultimately collapse back to low point A or low point B in a mobile defense in depth. So they've got mutually supporting battle positions that are arrayed in such a way as to attrit me as I advance through their engagement area, and then as their defense starts to weaken, I expect that they would break contact and then reconsolidate at subsequent fighting positions further to their rear. I think that's also true over here of High Point A. High Point A is probably in the most complex terrain. It's also the highest position on the map, which gives it the best observation in fields of fire. And what I think I am going to do is, because I'm a scout platoon and I've got to basically kind of hold on for about 10 minutes until the rest of my force arrives, I think I'm going to try to find some terrain to tuck my vehicles into, establish observation posts, and begin calling for fire on these pieces of key terrain to try and knock the enemy off of them before the rest of the force arrives. The rest of the force is going to be rifle platoon plus, also of a striker brigade combat team composition with the company headquarters. And then I think I also get an MGS, or a mobile gun system platoon, a little bit later on. And the mobile gun system is just a 105mm smoothbore cannon mounted on a striker chassis. So it just gives me basically a tank hunter kind of capability that is not heavily armored. And then we've also got 120mm mortars, and we've got 155 howitzers in support right now. The 155s are ready to go. The 120s won't be available until the rest of the infantry force arrives here in about 10 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw out my plan, trace it out to the best of my ability, then explain what I chose to do during that turn. Then we're going to play the turn in real time, watch it happen, and then hopefully you guys will kind of see the way my brain works as this situation develops, and we can make it happen. Here we go. So right now I do have just the scout platoon, so it's 4 strikers each filled with these scouts in them. They're pretty proficient at finding bad guys, calling for fire and stuff like that, but they have been compromised by these bad guys in the high ground. So far I've decided to split my force. I'm going to get off of this high-speed avenue of approach and out of the enemy's engagement area. I've directed these guys to move hull down just meaning they'll stop at a point where their hull is just barely visible to the enemy, and I've asked these guys to essentially do the same thing. I'm not completely proficient with all of the game's mechanics, and I know there's a lot of combat mission vets who have been playing this for like 20 years or something, so go ahead in the comments and just let me know what mechanics I'm using poorly, and we'll continue to get better at the game so that the doctrine can really shine. At least that's the goal. So I've split the force. Without becoming decisively engaged, I plan to get these guys over here into some micro terrain, get the scouts out, spread them out so we can't be fixed by fires, and begin calling for fire on High Point A over here. These guys, kind of same thing. I'm going to try to get them all the way up into these little kind of pieces of terrain here, dismount the scouts, potentially move them up into some of this high ground, and then call for fire over here on High Point B. Pretty close to the enemy over there. Kind of concerning, actually, but we'll see how it goes. And so we've already got this one fire mission that we called over here on High Point B, but let's go ahead and play this thing out and see how it works out for us.
Sir, we spotted an enemy unit. Watch out. Enemy unit.
Okay, the situation continues to develop. Still just have a scout platoon committed. 2 minutes have elapsed. I've actually put this fire mission into a check fire. Unable to assess BDA. I did assume there was an enemy OP there. I'm hopeful that they were disrupted as a result of that fire. My scout platoon actually identified the enemy's defensive fighting position. So they've got like a linear trench system or bunker system right here. Of note, there's an anti-tank guided missile team like right here. So that's like the first high payoff target on the battlefield that I see that I know that I'm going to need to knock out. And then there was also a bunker system that we engaged kind of previously. Where's that bunker system at? Yeah, that guy right there. There's also a heavy machine gun over here, and so like we're starting to get a better picture of the enemy. Interestingly, we haven't seen any enemy on the high ground. It would be asinine to just try and defend this valley within the valley. So I'm still assuming that there's enemy up on the high ground, because it would just be so just amateur not to do that. What we have done, though, is we've directed the scouts to get out here, use micro-terrain to move up this way. We've got squads that are going to be moving and bounding Overwatch. I'm hopeful that I've got enough like micro-terrain here to kind of protect my flank a little bit. The strikers are a little bit exposed. Not a huge fan of it, but it is what it is, and I don't want to send the strikers up over this IV line, this intervisibility line, to just eat like an RPG on the other side of it. So right now I am accepting the risk from this flank, but mitigating the risk from this flank by trading some space for time, pushing my infantry or my scouts out in front to do a defile drill, take a peek over the top, determine whether or not there's any AT threats, and then after I've made that determination, push the strikers up over the top of the hill. Doing something similar over here. And this is dangerous, guys, because I am knowingly, giving these guys over here the opportunity to engage, but hopefully I can get the fire support I need here in a second. But here I'm dismounting the infantry. I'm squeezing them right here into this low ground, pushing them all the way up here. Goal is to try to determine if this position is occupied. If it's not occupied, guys, I'm going to get up here and start calling for fire and putting some hurt on these people. So to be determined whether or not this is going to go my way. Okay, the situation continues to develop. Still no evidence of enemy on the high ground over here. What I have done is I'm grabbing a javelin out of this striker. I'm going to put that jav into that bunker over there, 650-ish meters away. Super easy shot for the jav. This other scout team, I'm going to use this micro-terrain to establish a little OP right here. See if I can get eyes on high point C and B, determine whether or not they're occupied. If they're not, swing the strikers up around the corner here and use them to establish my OPs to support the main assault element once they arrive over here. Using these two strikers just as like a temporary little battle position to provide suppressing fire along the enemy's defenses that are entrenched over here. This is also that heavy weapon system, that heavy gun that we saw moving around. They're able to see them. This other infantry, kind of same kind of strategy. I'm going to move forward to determine whether or not high point A is occupied. If it is, we'll move the strikers up, use them to fix the enemy in place and destroy them, and then take that position by force.
Sir, we spotted an enemy unit.
Alright, with that turn in the books, there's still no evidence of enemy positions on high point A over here. I'm going to start creeping forward a little bit more just to continue to examine that position. Lots of evidence of enemy in the low ground, unsurprised based off of what we've seen so far. And then finally, we've seen an enemy presence over here on the high ground off to the west. So another bunker. This looks like the far end of that trench system. We just weren't able to see it yet. And you can see how it kind of like runs all the way down, very likely across that entire center portion of the valley. I'm going to move another jab up. I'm going to hit this bunker with a jab since we were so successful with our previous engagement on this guy over here. And I think I'm just going to keep, every bunker gets a javelin. It's a good policy, I think, based off of the success we saw with that first one. I'm scooting one striker further up here to provide support, using these infantry to kind of swing around the back of this key terrain and take a peek at this high ground right there. Over here, we're kind of holding what we got. I'm putting a jav into the bunker that I haven't engaged yet, and I'm calling for fire with Excalibur rounds on the ATGM that we see right there. Hopefully we can keep it suppressed. Until then, these guys are going to maintain eyes on this bunker. Alright, over here, I'm having this squad grab javs out of this truck to engage bunkers along the trench line. I'm still working the fire mission on this ATGM. I am concerned, though, because we need to get this thing out of the fight fast. Javelin's not the right weaponeering solution for it. Indirect is, with the VT prox fuse specifically. But it just takes a while to get those effects on target. We've still got some standoff. We've got reasonable suppression, so not the end of the world. I'm bringing this squad back to grab jabs out of this truck, and then we're going to come back and sling a jab over there at that trench line and knock out that bunker that we've been messing with before we become decisively engaged. So that's where we're at right now, working the fire missions, knocking out high payoff targets. Alright, plan seems to be developing appropriately. This element over here's got the jab out, getting ready to engage this bunker. We are taking some fire from the low ground over here, so we're going to reposition the trucks to get some more suppression on there. We just set up the call for fire mission for that precision strike on the ATGM, and over here we've secured jabs from the back of this striker, and I don't know what this guy's engaging, but I'm about it. We'll see. It looks like, actually, based off the trajectory, he might be hitting that same dang target that we're hitting with our fires. Oh, he shot across the map.
Roger. Fire perfect.
Okay, reinforcements arrived. I've gotten some new artillery, so a couple actually, 4 tubes of 120mm mortars, which are just the battalion's mortars. And then we also got all of this reinforcement down here, which is the rest of this infantry striker company, a section of engineers. We have snipers, 2 infantry squads, 1, 2, 3 ICVs, and 3 MGSs. I'm going to heavily weight this flank because they need the support. We're going to have to knock out some of these bunkers and stuff. And there's also just more key terrain over here that I can capture. I'm going to leave this OP over here to continue calling for fire for the rest of the mission. I've got linear targets working right now here and here. I've got a javelin still in the air knocking out this bunker back here. And I'm moving the MGSs this turn. I'm moving the infantry next turn while I'm still embarking. So things are, they're getting going. Man, alright, so we got enemy that are starting to break contact from the trench line, kind of like we expected them to. Still got some arty about to come in on the trench line. Knocked out the bunker over here in depth, repositioned the MGSs to support it. Infantry is just about loaded. What do we got left? Man, 2 squads there, that's so dangerous. Alright, repositioning scouts on this side of the terrain, completing my load and move of infantry over here, staging them in this micro terrain, continuing to develop this situation, trying to clean out the enemy in this bunker so we can get to high point B, C, and D. Here we go.
Fire mission out.
Alright, we've got a fire mission requested on this bunker series. We've got a linear target along this portion of this trench line, a linear target along this portion of this trench line, and we're about to start bringing in a lot of fires and effects that should be able to knock out some of these light enemy positions. Giving the MGS trucks a couple targets. Ooh. They knocked out that whole squad.
Over. Shot out. Shot over. Shot out. Shot over. Shot out. Shot over. Shot out. Shot out. Flash out. Flash over. Shot over. Flash shot out. Flash out. Fire for effect out.
One of the mistakes we made in the last episode was underestimating, or I guess overestimating the effectiveness of artillery and just not using it to its full potential because we just didn't, prioritize concentration and instead kind of assumed that the way that the damage model would simulate artillery strikes would kind of resemble what you'd expect in real life. So we dumped a ton of 120mm mortars in that building, but it just didn't do what we needed to in the way of achieving effects, and we paid for it. We're not making that mistake this time. I'm not moving forward to attack this trench until we have done everything we can to make it right. And right now I've got terrain, I've got fires, the enemy doesn't. We have been sitting still for a while. I do expect to start taking indirect potentially at some point here. So I'd like to be able to perform some survivability moves in the near future. I don't want to do that until I've got this taken care of. We have 155s coming in momentarily, and that'll be exactly what I need to get that all done.
Over. Fire for effect, over.
All right, we're starting to maneuver a little bit now that we've got good suppression. I've got one more fire mission coming out right here. We've got 155 still landing here. We're going to establish a base fire from this piece of terrain. I'm actually going to push another element, I think, wide to actually move up and assault this piece of terrain. I have one more bunker over here in depth that we need to be concerned about, and there is still dead space behind this little hill mass here that we need to be at least aware of.
Spotted
maneuver looks similar, leaving this MGS in position to maintain overwatch on the center of the obstacle and the trench line, moving these engineers up into this micro terrain, establishing a support by fire here, bounding up into this firing line to get out of the way of some of these RPGs that we've been eating over here, but fortunately haven't landed yet. Once he is set, this guy will pause 15 seconds, then creep forward. This MGS is going to engage long on this bunker. Then our maneuver element is going to push long to dismount behind this piece of micro terrain over here. Don't know what's in this little sliver of dead space behind it. Hopeful that it is nothing that is going to murder us. Alright, we're definitely winning the fight up on the high ground near point C. We've taken point B from the enemy, attrited a lot of the guys that were in this trench system. We've got more rounds coming into the center of this trench system. We've also located what looks like the enemy's headquarters, so that's going to become a high payoff target here to continue to disrupt their ability to perform mission command and command and control. Linear target coming in, basically center mass the enemy here, and then the rest of my 120s are kind of coming in right on the other side. But since I have identified, what I assess to be the potential enemy headquarters site, I am considering that for a 155 strike. We saw a lot of fires coming in right here on the center trench. I've decided not to target this deep C2 node just yet because his forces are in such disarray right now that I don't think he has mission command as it is. The benefit of targeting this center line trench with our indirect is it's forcing these enemy to get out of the trench and try to break contact, and when they do, they're getting cut down by direct fire. So a combination of VT procs, HE from the 120s and the 155, as well as direct fire from the heavy guns on the strikers is really just withering these guys away. And we're still outside of the range of most of their weapon systems, so we're before that probable line of contact and beyond the enemy's ability to reach out and touch us, but still affecting him with our own heavy guns and our standoff weapons and our jabs and our arty. Meanwhile, up here, we've got this piece of key terrain. We're about to take this piece of key terrain. I'm putting a machine gun team here so we can achieve enfilade fires along the long axis of this trench. I'm going to stage a rifle squad here as well. If we have to perform enter and clear a trench, we will, just to secure that piece of terrain. Then I'm also pushing a striker along over here with another gun team and a rifle squad to establish another intermediate support by fire on this piece of terrain oriented on high point D in this suspect bunker right here, with snipers, gun team, rifle squad, so plenty of maneuver. That should allow us to take both pieces of key terrain at the high point A, which we took very early on, and then B, C, and D. Once that's done, we'll almost have the enemy completely encircled. We'll be able to continue engaging him from nearly 360 degrees with our standoff weapon systems, and I think that's a good day.
Ow. Flash over. Flash out. Flash out.
Alright, we got a rifle squad moving to support this maneuver element. These guys took a little bit of contact from this little bunker, so we're going to go ahead and dismount. I've got a machine gun setting up an intermediate support by fire. We're going to kick out snipers as well to do the same. They've got an ATGM, so if they need to hit this bunker or this position, they can with that ATGM. Also going to kick out my C2, hold them in position back here, and then move up this maneuver element in case we do have to maneuver. Over here, I'm going to continue my bound forward with alternating bounds, 2 strikers to this first point, then another to push long. And then that'll kind of put us in a position where we will have culminated in a nice little L on this trench. We do have this machine gun deployed. He's able to affect this trench line with enfilade fires as well as engage over here deep. Steady state operations with my OP up here. Fire support coming down along the trench line. Enemy is fixed. Still some elements in reserve. These 2 OPs are still just observing fire missions. If you want to take a look at where those fire missions are, there's a big linear target there, a little linear target there, Another linear target there, just doing work all along that trench line from 3 different OPs that we had since the very beginning over here. This MGS is still kind of in reserve right now, not engaging any deliberate targets. We're just taking shots at targets of opportunity. We got to keep the indirect up because I know there's still ATGMs over here hanging out. But it's about to get a little sporty.
Fire for effect. Over. West fire mission out. Shot. Over. Shot. Out. Roger. Fire for effect. Shot. Over. Shot. Out. Exhibition. Out.
Watch out. Enemy unit.
Fire. Go fire.
All right, so over here we've got a support by fire established suppressing right here. We've got an intermediate support by fire with the truck providing additional support. Snot is right here engaging targets with precision fires in the trench line, and we're maneuvering with our infantry squad up here. We're going to get cut off pretty early because of the geometry, but that's why we've got this truck to kind of help us get in there. Over here, just because of a lack of maneuver forces, we've really overwhelmed the enemy, but we've got these sappers I've told to go ahead and enter and clear this trench. We've taken a little bit of damage from these guys, so I've directed some of these strikers to target directly back at that spot here for just a second. We talked about earlier how, you know, at the beginning of this thing, that the key terrain is definitely the high ground on either sides. The engagement area is in the center. That's true. We also talked about primary, alternate, supplementary, and subsequent fighting positions, and that's exactly what we're seeing. So clearly their main fighting positions are starting to become abandoned, but we're seeing them fall back and occupy subsequent fighting positions in this layered defense. Here's an example of some of those subsequent positions. What I'm going to do is, as soon as I get these 155s available, once again, I've still got plenty of rounds left, I'm going to put some VT procs over those subsequent fighting positions. But up here, we've got some primo maneuver going on. Let's see how it shakes out.
Fire for effect. Over.
Okay, so here we've got sappers in the trench. I'm putting more sappers in the trench. I'm choking up these strikers, and I'm having each of these strikers target briefly that portion of the trench because we're going to push down this long axis with our sappers. These guys are going to start assaulting through this objective. They are going to bound through with the striker just to make sure we don't have any guys do anything crazy over here, or to take prisoners if we need to. They'll ultimately move up and knock out this bunker. They've still got snipers and a machine gun in Overwatch, although this machine gun's going to get cut off pretty soon because it's going to move into the surface danger zone, or the assault element's going to move into the surface danger zone. Snipers are still able to support this trench. We've got a good support by fire plan over here. Fires are still coming in. This OP is still doing work. So far, still doing okay. Let's take a look at this one first.
Shot. Over. Shot. Out. Fire perfect. Over.
We continue to envelop the enemy. Taking a risk here, guys, by bringing these strikers up to this point, which is going to expose them on their left flank to kind of some unknowns off in the distance. But the reason we're doing that is to achieve infiltrate fire and complete our envelopment here and provide support to our engineers that are in the trench right now. High risk move, but that's where we're at. Over here, we did knock out this defensive position. We're still not certain what's on the other side of high point D. We're going to move up with 2 strikers in our maneuver force, and then we'll creep up here and establish yet another support by fire position, this one designed to begin attacking the enemy in depth. We'll need some forward observers to assist with that. So once this is all said and done, we're going to collapse these observers when they're done observing that fire mission, and we'll end up sending a striker back to get them and repositioning them up here on high point D to support our final assault. 30 minutes left of in-game time. Here we go. So these enemy are breaking contact from the direct fire, but they're running into my fire mission, which is in the center of the trench line. We've completed the envelopment of the enemy's primary battle position. Awesome. Dismounting my infantry here, going to allow them to hunt forward until they encounter the enemy and then begin engaging. I'm going to send the snipers over here so they can take shots back towards the trench line and support the fight that we've still got going on. Send the infantry forward up here to get a better idea of what things look like at low point A and B. With that done, we're still controlling this fire mission. When this fire mission is complete, we'll scoop up these observers and reposition them. I do like kind of the position that I've managed to get my strikers in here. They're doing a ton of damage on this trench line, and these engineers are well supported right now. But I'm going to let these strikers occupy this position as a support by fire and continue to attrit the enemy along this entire trench line before I begin moving those engineers forward at all. There's just no reason to right now. We're accomplishing everything that we need to accomplish. I'm repositioning these observers a little bit so they can have good eyes on, so when we bound these observers forward, we don't lose any coverage. The company fire support team is actually right here, so I'm going to get them out of this striker and run them over here to this piece of key terrain so they can start calling for fire in depth once we're complete fighting the trench system here. I'm running this striker back to pick up a machine gun team. I'm going to leave these observers in position for now. I'm going to leave one MGS here to continue suppressing, bound the other one forward into my firing line here, allow these guys to continue firing in depth, and allow my observers to continue calling for fire in the center of the trench. I've put my spotters into a check fire, so we're not going to continue to pummel the trench line anymore. I'm going to save those rounds for the deep fight. I'm going to leave these spotters in position to watch this center movement corridor. I'm going to take these spotters, bound them forward. Should have done that sooner, actually. Talked about it, didn't do it. I'm going to place them here. I'm going to allow these guys to begin suppressing targets deep. It's tough to identify them, but we know that they are out there. I imagine we will be seeing them shortly. I'm going to start leveling some of these buildings. So first things first, I'm going to have these engineers actually grab a javelin and put it into that building. And then I'm going to, I think, use this guy to call for fire. Engineers, baby. Nice work, guys. Essayons. So there's a temptation here because we're close to the end to assault down into this valley and take this low point. So there's a couple reasons I hesitate to do that. One is because we're still kind of in close contact over here, even though it's not, not dire. This is certainly still a threat. But the other one is because there's no need. Like, we can kill the enemy from standoff, and the game wants me to go stand on this terrain, but I can dominate the terrain from the hill where I'm at. So there's no tactical reason to sacrifice this position and get down in the low ground. I would rather stay atop the key terrain, use my standoff weapon systems and my firepower, and win the fight in that way. So that's what I intend to do. Let's see how it works out for us. Wow, we achieved a total victory. That was 3 hours of me sitting here playing this, guys. Man, I hope I can turn this into something good. 69 men were okay. We had 0 killed. We did suffer 2 wounded. Lost no vehicles. We killed 126, 59 wounded. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope I'm able to take this 3 hours of gameplay and turn it into a 20 or 30 minute video that you guys can enjoy. If you like this game, it's a sim called Combat Mission Shock Force 2. It's actually available on my game store. A couple of the Shock Force, or a couple of the Combat Mission games are. So if you want to give it a swing, if you want to give it a whirl, learn about tactics and doctrine, and apply it in a pretty challenging and contested environment, this is a great way to do it. I appreciate y'all's support. I'm Controlled Pairs. I play the most immersive tactical shooters and combat sims in the world. This is Combat Mission Shock Force 2. And I'll see you in the next one.